Way back at the turn of the 20th century, as the modern world we know was just being born, one thinker was wrestling with a question that, honestly, still haunts us today. It's a question about the invisible forces that hold us all together.
I mean, really think about that for a second. We're all out here, chasing our own dreams, our own goals. So what is that social glue that keeps us from just flying apart into chaos? Well, the person who dedicated his life to that question was Émile Durkheim.
So to get to the bottom of this, we've got to look at Émile Durkheim, and he wasn't just some stuffy academic. He kind of saw himself as a social physician, trying to take society's temperature and diagnose its health as it was changing at lightning speed.
I mean, this one single question, it drove his entire life's work. He wanted to scientifically pin down the source of our connection to each other, the very foundation of social order itself.
Okay, so his quest starts by looking way back at older, more traditional societies. And what he found was that the original social glue was surprisingly simple. It was based on one thing, everyone being, more or less, the same.
He gave this a name, mechanical solidarity. Just picture it, a society made of a bunch of small, identical parts, all ticking along automatically, kind of like a simple machine. The solidarity, that feeling of togetherness, it comes from having shared experiences, shared work, and of course, shared beliefs.
And in the engine running this whole machine, Durkheim called it the collective conscience. Think of it like a shared mind for the whole society, a super powerful, intense, and deeply religious set of beliefs that absolutely everyone held. And going against it? Whoa, that wasn't just breaking some rule, it was going against everyone and everything.
So in this world, right, everything was small scale, based on family and kinship. If you broke a rule, the punishment was harsh and it was public, because a crime against one person, that was seen as an attack on the entire group's belief system. Serious stuff.
But here's the thing, as society started getting bigger and more complex, that old glue, it started to dissolve. A whole new kind of connection was needed. And here's the crazy part. It wasn't based on our sameness, but on our differences.
And that brings us right into the modern world, the age of the specialist, where a totally new, way more complex kind of solidarity had to take over.
So how did this huge shift happen? Well, Durkheim laid it out as a pretty simple chain of events. First, populations grew and cities got denser. That meant competition for everything got fierce. So to survive, people had to specialize. You had to become the baker, the butcher, the programmer. We all had to carve out our own little niche.
He called this new glue organic solidarity, and he used a great analogy, a living body. Just like in your own body, the heart and lungs do totally different things, but they absolutely depend on each other to keep you alive. That's us in a modern society. I need the farmer needs the doctor, and the doctor needs the engineer. We're all in it together. So because of all this, that old, super powerful collective conscience, it had to change. It got a little weaker, a lot more general. Instead of demanding everyone follow the same strict religious rules, it started to value things like, individualism, freedom, personal dignity. All the ideas you need for a complex society like ours to actually work.
But remember, Durkheim is our social physician, and he saw a big problem on the horizon. What happens if this transition goes down too fast? What if the old glue dissolves before the new one has a chance to really set?
And this brings us to his most famous diagnosis, anomie. It's basically a state of normlessness, like you're adrift at sea without a compass. People feel totally disconnected from society because the rules of the game just aren't clear anymore.
And this is the real paradox, right? The very system that's supposed to create our modern solidarity, this division of labor, can sometimes backfire, producing alienation and despair if it isn't regulated properly. It can, in a sense, get sick.
Now, to prove this wasn't just some abstract idea, Durkheim did something groundbreaking. He looked at suicide rates, arguing they weren't just personal tragedies, but social facts. He mapped out 4 types, based on 2 key social forces. On one side, you've got your attachment to groups. Too little could lead to egoistic suicide, too much altruistic suicide. On the other side, you have regulation by society's norms. Too much regulation could lead to fatalistic suicide, and the big one for his theory, too little regulation causes that anemic suicide we're talking about.
Okay, so if anomie is the sickness, what was Dr. Durkheim's prescription? He wasn't about turning back the clock. He knew we needed a new source of morality for the modern age.
His solution was actually pretty practical. Create new groups built around our jobs. These occupational groups, Think of things like unions or professional associations. They could step in and provide that sense of community and moral belonging that for a lot of people, family and religion just couldn't provide anymore.
And this led him to an even deeper insight, a really powerful feedback loop. He figured out that our shared rituals, whether that's in a church or a team meeting at the office, they aren't just things we do. They actively reinforce our shared beliefs and, by doing that, they reinforce the very structure of our society.
So in the end, he realized it's not really about the gods you worship or the specific rules you follow. The real magic, the essential ingredient of all social glue, ancient and modern, is the power of shared ritual. It's that powerful feeling of being part of something bigger than yourself that truly, truly binds us together.
Now, look, Durkheim was writing all this over a century ago, but his quest, man, it feels more urgent today than ever before. We are still grappling with this exact same fundamental problem. Just think about our world right now. We've got social networks connecting billions of people, yet we hear about rising levels of loneliness all the time. We celebrate the individual, but we worry about society breaking apart. Durkheim gives us the language, the tools, to diagnose these modern tensions.
And that really leaves us with one last big question. In our own lives, in this complex, globalized, digital world, what is our social glue? What are the shared rituals and sacred symbols that create our modern moral communities? That's the enduring quest Durkheim left for all of us to figure out.